All right, folks. So, does Prater fit the code? I think we know the answer to that question. Who is the New York Ripper? Is Dexter's decision or a companion, decision companion, or I guess you can say his inner voice, a taste of things to come? All of that, as well as a brand new guest, exciting new guest this week. All of that and more on tonight's the night, the unofficial Dexter Resurrection podcast. Stay tuned. All right. Good evening to those of you on the East Coast. Good evening also to those of you on the West Coast. Welcome to tonight's the night, the unofficial Dexter Resurrection podcast, the show in which we uh, join join you, fellow dark passengers out there who are interested or intrigued to join or journey down the rabbit hole that is the world of one Dexter Morgan. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And just so you guys are aware, I know you guys kind of have an idea at this point of how things go. The focus of this week's show will be episode 10, titled And Justice for All. We're going to get into a recap, and then following the recap, of course, I'm going to introduce our guest host this week. After I do that, we'll get into some analysis, some themes for the episode, as well as some theories as well, and then we will wrap it all up with our review. So with that being said, before I get into our recap, if you are watching this episode live, first off, thank you. I really do appreciate it if you are checking this out live. But if you are catching us after the fact, after we've aired, just know that I will be timestamping the episode accordingly. So at your heart's content, you can fast forward or you can rewind to different parts of this said episode. So with that out of the way, I'm going to get into our recap. So if you give me one moment, I will do so. And this goes without saying, of course, spoilers will be ahead. So just to give you fair warning. All right. So as I said, the focus of this week's show will be the season finale, episode 10, titled And Justice for All. We begin the episode picking up from last week's cliffhanger as Dexter tries to determine the best course of action of getting out of Prater's lock memorabilia vault. Meanwhile, on the other side of the vault, Prater settles on leaving Dexter in the vault while also tasking Charlie to keep a watchful eye on it. After failed attempts to get himself out of his predicament, Dexter unexpectedly unearths a familial presence and voice in the form of his older brother, Brian. Eventually, with Brian taunting him in his head, Dexter reluctantly calls on his son to help, providing him with his location despite knowing the danger of involving him. As a result, Harrison takes up his co-worker's prior offer to work at Prater's gala while waiting for his son's rescue. In his search to locate the code to open Prater's vault, Dexter discovers Prater's files on Charlie, aka Charlotte Brown, likely being kept as a means to blackmail her should she ever betray him. More on this later. As at Prater's mansion, Harrison, thanks to some quick thinking, bypasses the view of Prater and with his father's guidance finds Prater's vault. However, in doing so, ends up coming across some challenges as Harrison is intercepted by Charlie. And as Prater is basking in the adoration of the authorities at his gala downstairs, Dexter, through use of Harrison's phone, reveals to Charlie Prater's files on her, which, after a deal to destroy these incriminating files, then causes her to let Harrison go, thereby allowing him to free Dexter. Upon doing so, Harrison is then ordered by Dexter to leave the gala for his safety while he finds his own way out. As this is happening, Charlie confronts Prater at his gala about his intentions to blackmail her and consequently quits from his employment. In the throes of this unexpected resignation, Prater eventually spots Harrison in his attempt to escape and brings him back to his vault, forcing Dexter into one last standoff with the homicidal billionaire. Through some quick thinking between father and son, Harrison is able to escape Prater's clutches, and by episode's end, Dexter is able to do his thing, taking out Prater in his unique Dexter way and exposing Prater's vault to the authorities thanks to sabotaging Prater's vault alarm siren. What follows is a montage of Harrison enjoying his still budding relationship with Gigi and Dexter's disposing of Prater's remains off of his yacht. And that brings us to the end of our season 1 finale. So with that, I'm going to get into introducing our guest hosts this week. And they've been on the show before, but today's guest is an Emmy Award-winning actor who provides their voice to a variety of iconic characters, whether we're talking Donald Duck, Grimace, Gizmo, as well as Starscream, just to name a few. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show Mr. Daniel Ross. Let me bring him on now.
Hello, everybody.
Yo, yo, yo. What's going on, Daniel?
Oh, some Dexter's going on.
So this is so awesome to have you on. I tell you, it was not a part of my bingo card when I was putting the show together to have Donald Duck doing a Dexter show with me. But awesome to have you on. And crazy season 1 that we've had thus far with this new iteration of the Dexter mythos. If we're just going into initial impressions just for you, of course we'll save like the specific details for the review at the end, but what were your initial impressions of this season finale?
As a whole, this season was really refreshing.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, I had kind of given up on Dexter after a while. And I watched Original Sin and was not particularly pleased with it. So watching Resurrection, it seemed like we were doing, Jason Takes Manhattan. So we've got Dexter in New York in a different setting, in a different environment, different scenarios. And it was really fascinating to kind of watch Dexter both excel and struggle with those areas. And of course, spoilers, being a father and coming to terms with that. After what happened last season or last show, I don't know how we're addressing that.
I guess you could say you could say a couple of shows ago. So I guess in the context of time, it would be the last show, but technically, yeah, it would be a couple of shows ago. Because I guess you could say, now that I think about it, Original Sin, they kind of did it in the context of a flashback. Because he was still on death's bed while he was, I guess, reminiscing about his past.
I feel like it was one of those things where they're like, hey, we need some flashbacks for Resurrection, and we don't want to put Michael C. Hall in a wig again. So let's make a whole show. We could make a whole show, and oh my gosh, we can get back to Miami PD, and we can get back to the formula. We love the formula of Dexter, and that's how we can do it, and that's what they did.
For sure.
So I found that aspect of it to be quite amusing. But the season for Resurrection, I was thoroughly impressed. I thought there were some really standout episodes, really great performances, a great guest cast, lots of fantastic cameos and performances. And it was something new and refreshing for Dexter, which is, I think, what I thought was the strongest aspect of it.
For sure. And for me, I guess with the season finale, I didn't know if I was going to be satisfied with the character arc that Prater had, Leon Prater had, and for the most part, I did enjoy that journey that character had. I'll be honest, I am still kind of bummed to kind of lose Peter Dinklage, because I feel like what I anticipated, which what I'll talk about in theories ended up being debunked is that he would go on to kind of be, just like he said, someone who would be a supporter of Dexter that would kind of finance a lot of the things that he was doing, because we didn't really feel, at the beginning, that he really fell within the confines of his code. So what better way to still be able to utilize that character and the actor by having him stick around as kind of like a financial ally for Dexter in his quest to take out, serial killers. So but all that being said, the way that they went, for the most part, I'm cool with his arc, and I'm actually the opposite than you, Daniel, when it comes to Original Sin. I was on the fence after New Blood, and I've shared this before because of the setting. I feel one issue was a setting, because I feel like when you're talking about a small town, that doesn't really work in the context of Dexter, of how he operates, and then also, which they fixed in this show, I feel, and I'd love to know your opinion on that. I feel like they fixed their issue of utilizing Harrison, because in New Blood, I felt like Harrison was very much a hindrance, and he was kind of like one of those characters. He was just there to be a irritating obstacle for Dexter. Every single time he seemed to make some leeway, something that Harrison did caused a problem that was like an unnecessary problem. I was like, oh, come on. Like, really? Like, he's really doing, he really needs to do this at this point, where a character that it reminds me of, if I were to give a comparison or a parallel, would be Dawn in Buffy, where
Oh,
like Dawn, when she was initially introduced, I could not stand that character because she was just there just to be irritating and provide issues. But later on, after we got past the MacGuffin of what we found out her character to be, after that, I felt like she became better as a character. So I feel like in that same way, they found a way to utilize Harrison more effectively than they have in the past. But I'm sorry, getting back to Resurrection. Arc of Prater is great, and I was going to say they figured out a way, which I brought up in earlier episodes, of effectively utilizing the circumstances in a realistic way. Because I've talked about this with the prior episodes, the use of surveillance, the day and age that we live in, a lot of those things I wasn't able to buy of what was happening and what the characters were able to kind of get away with. And they have an explainer in this episode where I'm like, okay, thank you for at least acknowledging that, so that way I can buy all these other things that happen in the episode for it to make sense. So but getting into like some of the themes, one thing that I've brought up a lot of times thus far in other episodes is the idea, which it comes across throughout Dexter, is the idea of duality and mass. And I love to know your thoughts on something that I feel has popped up specifically in this episode, and that is the idea of Dexter's ever evolving humanity, where in prior iterations of his arc in other shows, it always seems like he was trying to make an effort to be more human. And I feel like in this show, we've seen instances where it isn't a facade that he's putting on. That he actually is, feeling that empathy and uh, uh, those things that you would perceive a normal person to have in terms of their connections to people, versus the monster or the dark passenger that he battles with. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I feel like we get a tease of that with the reappearance of Brian.
yeah. I mean, listen, the whole premise of Dexter was fascinating when it first came out. This was a time when Dexter came out. It was a time when the antagonist was not really seen as the protagonist.
Yeah.
And so we had this weird duality of flipping it on our heads and actually rooting for the bad guy. in a sense. And it's a fine line because he's got this code that he
Right.
follows so that he can be what he is. And we all thought that was really fascinating. And so I loved the original run of Dexter. I think after season 3, it kind of started to meander a little bit. And
Yeah.
I felt like we had the story of Dexter that was told. And, you know, it was always very akin to, you know, Pinocchio or Data on Star Trek. He wants to be a real boy. He wants to feel those emotions and be as real as possible. I don't think that was ever Dexter's goal. I think his goal was to emulate and to hide in the shadows as best as he possibly could, because he is. It's like Batman and Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is the mask, and Batman is the real entity. And so Dexter, the Dark Passenger, is the real entity, and Dexter is the mask. So, you know, this season in particular, the idea of him being able to let down the mask, which we've teased so many times in Dexter's history of, oh, now I can be myself. Oh, wait, no, I can't. Oh, now I can be myself. Oh, wait, no, I can't. That backfired. I kind of found it interesting that we were going to kind of do that again, which actually brings me to, I think, my biggest concern with Resurrection was that it really teased that we were going to do something new with Dexter. Maybe not empathy, but he certainly said to Harrison that he feels very protective of him. He has some type of instinct about him.
Yeah.
Whether that's empathy or not, it's hard to say. But I don't know that the payoff really worked for me. The season finale, I've talked generally about the season. I really was hoping for a different kind of setup, and I felt like they needed to wrap it up with a ribbon, and the dialogue at the end, I'm exactly who you want me to be. And I'm like, well, Dexter, actually, I'd like the character to evolve a bit. We've had, what, three now, 4 shows? Three shows? 4 shows now.
3? No, you're right. No, 4.
Dexter, Original Sin, New Blood, and now Resurrection. So we've had 4 shows with this character. And my biggest frustration is that we've just simply failed to evolve or do something different. Now, I'm not saying it needs to be, you know, Jason X, where we get Jason in space and have him turn into Uber Jason or anything like that. But I think what you were mentioning earlier with the teased idea of the benefactor could have taken Dexter in a very interesting direction. I think if we were thinking about future seasons, or I guess at this point, every season's going to be a new show if we're going there. But I wanted to see something new. And I knew he was going to get Prater. I didn't realize it was going to be exactly the same as he always does. I mean, did he really need to cut him up? He could have fit into a bag. So forgive me, my little friends. But, you know, like some of the tropes were just like, okay, we got to hit this mark. We got to hit this checkbox. And then, you know, you've got a billionaire that goes missing in what could essentially be the biggest fallout of having all this stuff with serial killers and documents and being a part of it and having his fingerprints on a murder weapon. And Dexter's out on his multi-million-dollar yacht in the middle of the bay with the Statue of Liberty. I would think the police would be all over that, like seize his assets. So there was an element of, I just don't believe this for the season finale that really disappointed me because the season was so strong. And Batista, my man, you went after a serial killer with no tools. You went after him with ear pods. Like, I would think a former head of, you know, Miami PD would have like trackers and like informants and people. No, he just was like, this is my vacation. I'm going to go track a serial killer and then die. So I really just to sum up, I really wanted more from this season. I wanted something different at the end to really ponder on, to say, where could Dexter go from here? And the reality is, he's not going anywhere different. He's going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. The formula is always going to be the same. And that frustrates me a little bit.
No, I hear you. And I guess the only reason why I bring that up is, you know, prior to this, it seemed like in a lot of his habits, a lot of it was under the auspices of appearing normal. Like one of the habits that come to mind immediately when I think of that is his habit of always bringing donuts for his coworkers. And he always wanted to kind of kind of ingratiate himself to his coworkers by bringing donuts all the time. However, like on this show, and they make a point to actually like single that situation out, is in the beginning of the season when he's pursuing the fake dark passenger on the subway. You know, he has a conversation with his father of, you know, before, this is the first time that you actually made an effort to go after someone and prevent them from hurting others. And they really make a point to like emphasize that, where I'm like, you know what, that is something different. Like, that is something I didn't expect, you know, Dexter to really be about. Because before, it seemed like he was just using the code just as a rationalization or excuse for him to get to the end goal of being able to take someone out because of this dark passenger that he keeps talking about as what drives him to do what he does. But you have that instance. You have, as you said, his connection to Harrison. Unexpectedly, he was actually pretty emotional about losing Bautista, which I wasn't really anticipating. He actually grieved a bit about losing Bautista. And I feel like the fact that Bautista got to him in that time or period during the season when they had kind of like that cat and mouse game, that normally when people really bother you, it's because you do actually care about them. And normally when folks don't really get under your skin is because you don't really care. But because it seemed like, because there was that history that they had, that Bautista was getting under his skin more than perhaps if it was someone that he didn't really know, he would have cared less about that person and what they were doing. And then even with him also mentioning his other colleagues, like when what was it, when I'm trying to remember, when Quinn was calling on Bautista's phone, he was like, "Oh man, I miss you guys." Like, so I don't know. Like, I get what you're saying, where it seems like same old, so to speak. But I still feel like they're giving hints that he is, and you may disagree with me, that they're giving hints of him evolving a bit in terms of what drives him. Like, he's still doing a lot of the same Dexter things, but it feels like there are a few more human things that are driving him that in the past I feel like you couldn't really say about Dexter at the time. So,
I think I would lean into that and agree even more if they had dealt a little bit more, if the writers had delved a little bit more into the psychology of him actually killing the dark passenger, because him seeing that as a part of himself and actually killing that part of himself, I think could have had very interesting ramifications for him emotionally or lack thereof, to maybe evolve and say, well, maybe the dark passenger doesn't have as much of a control on me as I think it does. I think that could have been a very interesting turning point for him. Obviously, the benefactor thing could have been a huge turning point of where does this character exist in the future?
Yeah.
You know, or doubling down on being a father, you know, to Harrison. It just seems like it's a situation of convenience for him. You know, he feels a responsibility to Harrison, of course. Fatherly instinct, from my friends who have kids, have said it is very strong. It is very strong. And so that may transcend his animal instincts to something different. And I would be curious to see where else that would take him. But I feel like there were a couple missed opportunities in this season to really do something interesting. And up until episode 9, I really felt like there could have been something interesting, and they just wrapped it up with a nice little neat bow. Like, this might be the last one we ever do. We don't want to necessarily set up anything else. And I was disappointed with that. I was like, come on, guys. When he got Batista out of the bonds that he was being held in, it didn't kill him right away. I was excited at that because it was like, you know what, you're giving Batista a second chance because he doesn't meet your code. So you're not going to kill him. You're going to give him a chance to do something, well, Batista was just like, oops, he made a bad mistake.
Yeah.
But yeah, and same thing with Prater. Like, you're surrounding yourself with all these serial killers, and you have all these protections and a vault and Charlie. But that's it. You've got Charlie and an army of cops ready to run upstairs the moment they hear that alarm. And that was kind of his entire protective system against these alpha predators that he was surrounding himself with. Uh, that didn't make a lot of sense to me. I figured a billionaire might have more resources, and
Fair.
given as such, it might be even more interesting to see how far Dexter would go to outsmart someone with as many resources as he had. And the outsmarting really just kind of boiled into any typical Dexter heist, that I've seen in the past, where he outsmarts another serial killer or somebody else. So I feel like that was a missed opportunity to do something really interesting and really dynamic.
Yeah.
Also,
That's
where
fair.
did he get the wrapping for Prater? Was that in the
That is
room?
also fair. That is also fair. Gosh, man. That is also fair. All of those questions. Wow. Because no, you're right. When you're thinking of just the prospect of having a character who's a billionaire, there are a lot of opportunities to really play with how far their influence goes. They talk about it a lot on this show or
Mm,
in this season, but to actually see it play out how far that influence extends, because someone who has that level of resources, their influence throughout the city is going to be ever expanding. And what type of challenges would that provide to Dexter outside of him having this kind of personal assassin
exactly.
as
I
his
almost
close?
think about
So
like Kingpin from Daredevil.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
got his claws sunk in everything
everywhere,
politically
everywhere.
and otherwise. And so I feel like Dexter would have had a harder time going up against Kingpin than he did Prater. And
Yeah,
they're essentially being set up to be equals.
yeah,
So the other thing too was the detective. I really loved the detective because she didn't miss a beat,
no,
especially when they were in the hotel and she looked up at the ceiling for the blood splatter and it wasn't there because Dexter was one step ahead of her. I really wanted some more of that dynamic, like a detective that was on par with Dexter and could either outsmart, get ahead of him, like that cat and mouse game. I was really excited for that. And we got a dance number in the finale.
we did, which I appreciated because it was an interesting component of that character, because that character is so not I don't want to say rigid, but is very by the book, and is very something that was nice to see, that gave a little more to her character, even though I enjoyed her character a lot, and as you said, her ability to kind of think outside the box in terms of her investigative techniques. So
Yeah, when she noticed the knot on the trash bag from when Harrison had messed up
yeah,
and
yeah,
was able to isolate that, I went, "Oh boy,
and just her
this one's gonna
different
be a hazard for Dexter and Harrison moving forward." And we sidestepped that, and we kind of pushed her out of the way, and I was sad about that.
That's fair.
I
No,
felt like if we're building to something, we're tying together Prater, we're tying together the detective, we're tying together Batista, and maybe we get Dexter. Maybe they finally catch the Bay Harbor Butcher. I would have been satisfied with that too. I know that's not what a lot of Dexter fans would want. We want to see him doing what he does. But again, we've had 4 different series now with Dexter. So either we bring it to a conclusion, the apex of entertainment for all the Dexter fans, or we keep it going in a different direction. But the formula, it has to change.
no, I hear you. I hear you. So, well, let me ask this, because I feel like
No,
we're starting to get into our theories, and I do want to get into our theories. But there was one other theme that I wanted to get your thoughts on before we get there, and that's in talking about Prater, because this was one thing that did come to fruition when we're talking about this character, and it's the idea that he has been hanging around these serial killers this entire time, and he had yet to actually take that step or take that leap. He kept tiptoeing in that world, and then he finally, once he got into that world, he became, the very thing that he was so fascinated by. So, what are your thoughts on that? Did you foresee that that was going to be something that we were going to get, or did you feel like he was going to still kind of stay on the outskirts and remain as someone who never really crossed that line?
Wouldn't it have been interesting if he knew about the Bay Harbor Butcher being Dexter from the get-go, and that his code meant that he couldn't get his hands dirty? Wouldn't that have been interesting, that he would never cross that line, so Dexter wouldn't think about actually taking him out, because he does all this altruistic stuff and funds the police and does all these great things for the city? Wouldn't that have been a very interesting dynamic to play with, where he's almost untouchable?
Yeah.
I thought, I was thinking that early on in the season. And, when he got the gun and he shot Batista and was like, oh boy, this is better than I thought it would be. I just felt like, come on, man. Now's the moment you chose to do that. Granted, it was to save your own skin. But, he could have just watched. He could have watched Dexter manhandle Batista, or the other way around, before he actually shot him. I thought that might be the way he goes, because he likes to watch.
Yeah.
So yeah, it felt a bit out of character for me, for him to just all of a sudden be like, oh boy, I've got a gun now, and I kills people's. Because then, yeah, clearly he qualified for Dexter's code.
Sure.
And Charlie, Uma Thurman, is fantastic, and I loved the character that she was playing.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden she grew a conscience at the very last minute.
I mean, okay. So I get your disbelief in that arc, but I will play devil's advocate and say this is that even though she kind of had this, really hard exterior, we had instances throughout this season, which I'm in the same boat as you when it comes out of left field, but I feel like they planted it throughout the season, in that she had discomfort with the situation, despite, all the training that she had, and her ability to kind of mask a lot of the discomfort that she had. She was very bothered by that situation with all of these serial killers. I mean, she even mentioned it in the initial instance when Bautista is murdered, where she mentions, I have no issue taking out all of these folks in your club, but when we're talking about taking out cops, like I'm out. I can't do it. And even prior to that, she expressed her discomfort in just the idea of this club and having all of these individuals and how they operate and knowing how they operate. She never seemed to be cool about it throughout the entire show. She always, whenever they came at odds, she always mentioned just that idea of her discomfort of the situation that she was placed in.
And this is why I question why Prater was a billionaire, because clearly his hiring skills weren't that good. He didn't vet his people well enough. He just used blackmail.
Yeah.
If you don't help me with my serial killer club, well, your mom's not going to get great health care. Oh, the stakes. Oh. I mean, realistically, how many movies have we seen where the hired help is just like menacing and will do anything because they're after the money? I can't imagine that this gentleman would have found somebody with a conscience to be his number one. That didn't make much sense to me, just from a term of applicability. And of course, I'm parsing hairs at this point to complain for the sake of complaining.
All good.
No, it felt a little unrealistic to me, that particular turn at the end.
Okay, that's fair. So, and I appreciate the contrast here, because the thing
I want to
that
see who's in the comments who agrees, disagrees with you and
right.
me,
No, I
and
was going to say the
you know,
thing
post your
that
comments in the section. Yeah,
for sure, for sure. Because I was going to say
like
like
and subscribe.
thing made that allows me to also play devil's advocate with that, Dan, is um thinking about
By the way, in this case, devil's advocate is Charlie.
fair. But in thinking of Prater as a character, they've kind of, to your point, analyzed that idea of him feeling the need or having this habit of being a possessor of things and possessor of people in the way that billionaires are. Like they if they can't, outside of having all these resources, they also find a sadistic joy in owning people also. So I guess that's the only way that it allowed me to be able to accept that idea of him finding Achilles heels in people and utilizing that to manipulate them. But I get your point too, where in the normal kind of, I guess, what is it, trope that we've had with that type of character, that ideally he's going to find someone who is ruthless just like him and would be willing to do that. But I will say this: I feel like maybe the reason why he didn't is perhaps on some level, because again, throughout this season, it felt like he was tiptoeing back and forth of, am I going to cross this line or am I not going to cross this line? Am I just going to be a observer of these folks in my group, or am I going to kind of join in that same way of life? Is maybe on some level he wanted someone who would challenge him and would actually have some semblance of what is it, guidance for him or conscience for him of really assessing the situation. Because I feel like if he got someone who was ruthless, I don't think that they would have challenged him in the way that she did throughout this entire season. And I feel like, as much as it seemed like they were at odds, I feel like he respected her for being able to challenge him. And as a billionaire, even more so, because he's used to having a lot of yes people surrounding him, which we saw even with the gala, where there aren't many people that are willing to kind of challenge him, and
Right.
to have someone who does, he's willing to kind of put up with, because it is something that he doesn't really come across in his day to day.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid point. Absolutely. In contrast to his other behavior and other people, yeah, having a close confidant who can steer him when
And
he's
call him
sick.
out when he's, yeah. Because I
Yeah.
feel like there were times where she was really calling him out, and he really did kind of take a step back, like, maybe I do need to, adhere to what you're telling me or what you're suggesting to me.
And
So
ultimately he didn't.
he did. He did. He didn't. He didn't.
He
For
was just
sure.
going to do what he wanted to do anyway.
For sure. So getting into theories, I feel like so many of mine have been debunked, but there were some that did come to be. Uh, in terms of Harrison making out, I thought that he was not going to make it based on what we've seen in past seasons, because it would have been something different. It would have been a new wrinkle of getting rid of him. Um, but he did survive. Same thing with Bautista. I thought that they were going to have him just be badly injured and continue on in a wheelchair, being permanently injured. But that didn't come to be either. Uh, but one thing that came to mind for me, and you kind of allude to it, and then I have an answer for what you mentioned prior about the situation with Dexter and the Dark Passenger, is perhaps the reason, because I was trying to understand why out of all this time are we finally getting Brian just popping back up. Were they utilizing Brian as a way to represent the Dark Passenger? That's basically devoid of all his emotional ties, his id, so to speak. that he's that representation of that component of his personality versus what we had with his father. At this point, we've never really had a manifestation of the dark passenger. We've always had someone who's been trying to steer him away from that, whether it's his father, whether it's his sister, but we've never really had a manifestation of that. So what if they're going to use Brian going forward as someone that he's constantly battling with that acts as that dark passenger?
Yeah, I mean, that would be very interesting. Once again, I kind of feel like if we're going to go in that direction for Dexter, where he is thoroughly compelled by one of his imaginary friends, so to speak, because he saw a lot of imaginary friends this season, which I liked.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
Seeing Dokes again was great.
Yeah, right.
That felt really good. And so having the ice cream truck killer back again. Was it ice cream truck or ice truck?
Ice truck.
Ice truck killer. Yeah. Sorry. The ice cream truck killer is a very different guy. But having him back was a nice callback and connective tissue to what came before. But again, it's a part of Dexter. I laughed out loud when his dad was like, "Go get him." When he just showed up, was like, "Go get that guy." Like that cracked me up. I thought that was really funny. But at the end of the day, these are not their individual characters. This is Dexter's own manifestation of what he wants to hear, or what he wants to see. And so, do they really matter? I would like to see them matter. I would like to see them matter in a different way. Perhaps, after the accident, him coming out of a coma, maybe he struggles with some identity personality disorder of some kind, where he is physically separated at different times, almost like Moon Knight, from the dark passenger and himself, and he can't satisfy his urges because the dark passenger actually takes over. That could be very interesting to play with. But again, I think the core that I keep going back to is, let's try something new. Let's try something new. We can give Dexter as many situations and obstacles as we can while repeating the same formula. And I think that certainly scratches an itch for Dexter fans. But again, we're 4 shows in. I want to see something different. If we go forward with a season 2, which I do hope they do. I really hope they do. This season, don't get my critiques out of context. This season was spectacular. I was engrossed by it. I couldn't wait for it week by week. And I was really excited for what Dexter could do. And so the finale was just kind of bread and butter, Dexter season 4 or 5. And I'm like, no, you built me up to think there was some master plan at play. And I would like to see something else. So obviously he can't have the yacht. That was a one and done.
And it's too bad too, because I would have loved to see him get the yacht, but that comes with too many questions if he kept it. So
wouldn't it have been even greater if he somehow got Prater to leave all of his wealth to him? He said he didn't want it. He didn't want it. But wouldn't that be interesting if all of a sudden he had all those resources and could travel the world, go to the White Lotus and start taking those guys out on HBO? Like that would be interesting to me. Dexter goes to Antarctica. I don't know.
Right.
He's like, I no longer like people. I like to club seals now. So I don't know. Just something else would have been spectacular for me. So theories moving forward. Again, I think the detective is an open area for us to explore. I think Quinn could be interesting. Maybe even oh gosh, what was his friend who had the silly laugh?
Yeah, Masuka.
Oh my gosh, my brain just farted there. Somehow involve Masuka or whatever. Yeah, bring those guys back, but give them something really interesting to do. Yeah. That's why I was really excited about Batista. They gave him something interesting to do, to be a foil for Dexter, something that was always in the background coming at him. And I really liked that. But let's pay it off. Let's really pay that off. Where else could Dexter go but another country?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so one thing that, and I can't take credit for this. I'll give a shout out to my guest host, for episodes 1 and 2 that kicked this whole what is it, tonight's the night podcast off this go around, and that's with Kevin. Shout out to you, Kevin, because he had this theory, and it kind of plays into that theory somewhat. So he gave the idea that what if, with this setup that we have with the serial killer club, that it kind of played out with what you have in an arc in Marvel Comics, where you have the Vault, and the Vault being the serial killer club, and you're introduced to all these characters, but Dexter doesn't get around to getting any of them this season. We're introduced to them, but they're able to get away. And the seasons following, each of those characters are the big bad of that season. So like, that allows you to kind of stretch what you establish as a foundation in the first season of getting to know these characters. And then, because we already know these characters now, it provides us a connection to each of these big bad villains that we have in the seasons following, where he has to track down each one of them. Where it's kind of like, okay, here they are, almost like Hunger Games. Now go out and try to, track each one of them down. Like that would have been, interesting, because up to this point, if we're talking about Dexter, to your point, if we needed something to provide a new wrinkle to the lore of Dexter, when we're talking about big bads, it goes around the same formula. We have a big bad. They're always in the background, always hovering in the background, things that they're doing. Dexter has his minor, characters that he goes after week by week, while he still has his big bad that's in the wings that he has to take down eventually at the end of the season. And we've had that again and again and again. And what if you still have that component of those mini bosses, if you will, but unlike other seasons where we're kind of getting introduced to those characters over the course of the season, we already know who they are. We've already been exposed to them. And now, we get even a deeper dive into those characters, or we can kind of just go, run off to the races, because we already kind of have an establishment of who those characters are. Like, that would be interesting.
I agree.
I was going to say, they kind of do that because we see Dexter taking out a lot of those files of all these killers that Prater says that he has scouted throughout the world. So we kind of get that, but I feel like it could have been interesting if they kind of bided their time and allowed those characters to exist a little longer. That way, you could get a season where it's all David Desmalchian. Could get a season that's all Kristen Ritter. You could get a season that's all, Eric, brain farting his last name. Feel bad. But I'm just saying, with each of those characters, it would give them their own kind of season to kind of play.
Right. But again, they kind of screwed the pooch on that one, because he took out everybody except for Goldilocks.
Yeah.
He got away, so that could be a potential. But there was another seed that was planted that, again, I thought was really interesting, was this idea of justice.
Yeah.
And that he has a sense of justice, which was a through line to his character throughout and through his family. And so my brain, of course, is thinking, well, what if he disposes of the Bay Harbor Butcher persona and becomes a vigilante in New York?
Hey,
and really leans into that. I know that's absolutely ridiculous for the character, but just in terms of thinking about what could come next, or how you challenge this character in a different way, I really think that's what the writers need to be positing at this point, because it's just, again, original sin for me just felt like, hey, we really need to get back to that formula that everybody likes. And we'll have some people cast that don't look anything like the characters, and we'll have some people who absolutely look like them and act like them. And it just came across as like college theater to me.
Oh, wow.
So I had a hard time getting into it specifically because of that. But again, it was like, I've seen this before. This is Dexter season 1, but we're doing a prequel. I want something new. Now with Harrison, and New Blood, I really thought they were setting him up to be the new Dexter.
Yeah.
Because at the end, he takes him out. He
Yeah.
takes him out. He's seen how he does it. And we kind of set up Resurrection where maybe he could do that, but no, he doesn't like it. So, okay, we're not going to do that. All right. Michael's got to work. Michael C. Hall has to work, so he's got to have more shows up in the roster.
There only could be one Dexter. But no, I hear you. Like I said, in terms of my Dexter journey, so to speak, like I said, New Blood, based on that, on the execution of Harrison and the setting, it was pretty middling for me.
New Blood, you literally had Mr. Krabs as the serial killer, Clancy Brown, who voices Mr. Krabs on SpongeBob.
Right, I know, and but in contrast to you, what got me back on board was New Blood. Like, it was good to kind of revisit a lot of those things that I appreciated about the original show.
Yeah,
and to kind of get a taste of that again before we got this new show. So
I was looking for redemption. With New Blood, because the end of season 5. I
hear you.
I was excited for it. Hey, maybe that's what the new show can be called, Redemption.
It could be. So, but yeah, so many interesting dangling threads. We have as I said, the new targets taken out of Prater's vault. We still have the identity of the New York Ripper out there. I thought that they were going to wrap that up this season, but they didn't. I still have my theories of who it is. I do believe that it is Aliva, but I know a lot of people are saying that it's the girlfriend. But we'll see. I don't know. I just can't buy that it's her because of considering her age. But I know a lot of people have tried to find rationalizations as to why she may still be that character. But
well, didn't she say she had some kind of nerve injury with her hand?
She did, but that's what I guess what a lot of people are saying is explaining why the character isn't active anymore. But she's still kind of vicariously living through her trophies by being the tour guide for that class that they ended up having, because she wants to relive it among the reactions of everyone that are watching, what she did in the past. I know that's something, and I can't take
and what better way to get a scope on a lot of people than to be a tour guide?
Yeah, and it would be on brand for a Dexter show to have another character that has a personal tie to a serial killer, because we did have that with Deb with the ice truck killer, where we didn't know that he was the ice truck killer,
right?
Even though they were having a relationship at the time, and we just thought, oh, he's just her current the current relationship that she has in this given moment. But come to find out, his familial ties to Dexter and who he ended up being. So that was like a crazy reveal. But maybe they're going on brand with that. But I still say Aliva, because I just can't see how Prater, no matter how rich this guy is, how he would get access to a lot of the stuff that are memorabilia for that particular killer, without having someone in law enforcement to provide that to him.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
In thinking of that, not only someone who can provide that to him, but someone that we've already established, even though we never got the reveal of who it was, of him saying that he has ties to law enforcement. Never found out.
Wouldn't it be funny if it was Aliva the main detective?
No, that was Wallace. Wallace was the lady, and Aliva was the guy.
Yes. Okay, we're on the same page then. So Aliva, that's what I was intimating.
No, because I was thinking that it was Wallace initially too, but I was like, no, like, she's weird, but she's weird because she's just very anal about like certain details of trying to figure things out in a particular way. She's very eccentric. That's another word. She's eccentric in the manner in which she investigates things. So that's kind of her thing. It would be too on the nose to also make her the killer too, because she's already demonstrating some level of weirdness anyway. So I was like, as I was observing a lot of these episodes, Aliva always seems to be at odds with her when she's trying to figure something out. He's always trying to dismantle certain things that she is trying to figure out as an investigator. When you look back at those episodes where he keeps like contradicting, or maybe it's not this way. Are you sure that it's this way? Like in the manner that he interacts with her.
Watch they figure out he's the killer because his right sleeve is too short.
I know. I don't know. What is the deal with that? What was the deal? I know. Yeah, that was. It has to be something to do with that, because they were playing an unnecessary amount of attention on that detail, and I'm like, what's going on with that? So, but yeah, like a lot of interesting things. If you were to, and I mean, you kind of got into it over the course of this episode, but if you were to sum it all up in terms of your review, and we were talking of, I base this on the number of microscopes here. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any slides. I really wanted to do slides, but be that as it may, if we're talking 5 being like a perfect episode and trickling down, 4 being good and 3 being average, where would this season finale fall?
Specifically, episode 10.
Yeah.
3 out of 5.
Okay. All right.
3 out of 5 for me.
Cool. For me, I would give it a 4. And the reason being, I enjoyed much of the episode. I enjoyed the Prater arc. I wasn't completely satisfied on how it wrapped up, but it could have gone far worse than how they wrapped it up. And there was enough interesting stuff there that, I was able to walk away with it being relatively, satisfying. And then I was also going to say I appreciated the fact that they were able to explain away a lot of the surveillance component, because I know that was what bothered me in earlier episodes this season, where I was like, we're in a modern day and age. This is 2025. We're supposed to assume this is 2025. And you're telling me that Harrison was able to take out this guest in this hotel, move the body out of the hotel, take the body to the kitchen, dismember, do whatever he does in that kitchen, still not get seen with the surveillance that you would likely have in the kitchen of the hotel, and still manage to dispose of the body and all of that in the trash bags, and still have no idea of what transpired at all. And then even with Dexter himself, like when we're talking,
but that was one of those tropes from Dexter where tends to be lucky.
Yeah, but
tends to be lucky.
I guess the reason why I bring that up is, at least a lot of times I can go with things and I can buy things if there is an explanation. Like in this episode, Prater makes a point to go to a security and to tell him to turn off all the security cams. So like, as crazy as it is, at least they explain that away, where I'm like, okay, that's why, this person wasn't able to be identified or seen, because at the time, all the security had been taken down. But to the point of this episode, that happened later and it didn't happen earlier. So ideally, the security should have still warned him that Harrison was going to the the vault, because I would assume that he has some level of security or some level of surveillance going to the vault. That happened at the beginning.
He was acting more like a millionaire rather than a billionaire.
So, but be that as it may, great characters. Really enjoyed the sparring that you had between Dexter and Prater. I've enjoyed it pretty much the entire season, but it was enjoyable this episode. I'm glad that they didn't get rid of, as much as they got rid of a lot of characters, they did not get rid of Uma Thurman. She can always come back. But outside of that, I would say a good episode, because the episode for me that was like nearly perfect this season, which I almost call like a twisted Avengers episode, was the episode with the introduction of the entire group, where you have all these incredible actors that are playing all of these different characters that we're introduced to, and the introduction of Prater and his manner and all of that. Like, I thought that episode was really awesome. That for me, that was the best episode of the season. But I mean, you've had memorable moments throughout that season. I feel like this one is right up there with the episode that we had the twin reveal. Like I thought that was a really good episode. It wasn't the best episode, but it was a good episode, and it was a great way to close off that episode. It was,
but it was also a great example of Dexter's manipulations.
Yes,
because he's so good at it.
Yes, so indeed.
He fooled them, except for Charlie. Charlie still had some reservations. Her red flags were up. What if her mom is the serial killer? That's why Prater's keeping her on life support, because he wants to keep her alive. I'm just being ridiculous.
Hey, you know what? When it comes to Dexter, anything crazy like that, I will not put it past this show. Like, between the ice truck killer, between the the Trinity killer, like there've been so many wild characters on this show. So, I wouldn't put it past them. Anything out of the ordinary.
I mean, for this series or this season, 5 blood slides out of 5. It was wonderful. It reignited my joy of this wonderfully depraved show. And I couldn't wait for the next episode. It just wasn't a great wrap up to me. It was, we got to tie this up with a neat little bow and wrap it up really quickly.
Hold on, you're going in and out there for a second, Dan.
I want to just emphasize that this was not a bad episode. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I just had too many nitpicks with it.
Gotcha. I think you were going in and out there for a second. You were saying about I don't know with your mic, but you were saying that overall. There you go. Yeah. I think you had it away from you, but you were saying like overall, outside of nitpicks, you've enjoyed the season pretty much.
I enjoyed the season thoroughly. It reignited my joy of this crazy show. And I couldn't wait for the next episode every week. It was a joy to be able to be like, okay, it's the day for a new episode of Dexter. I love that. I miss that about classic television, when you just binge everything all at once. The nitpicks for this particular episode, it was a good episode, mind you. This was a great season. They had to tie a lot of things up very quickly and in a neat little bow. And that could have been some influence behind the scenes from, you never know, like producers, writers. You never know what's going on behind the scenes. They might have pivoted at the last second and said, actually, no, we've got to wrap this up rather than leave it on a cliffhanger. So all those things, all those little threads that you put together, you just got to tie it up real quickly. So that was it. I'm splitting hairs. It was fantastic. I hope they do more, and I hope they're as good, if not better, than this season.
Well, I would assume, based on recent news of what happened with Original Sin, that the plan is to continue with more resurrection. I'll be honest, like I know it's unfortunate for the actors that they don't continue to do another season, but if we're considering the creative aspect of it and the storytelling aspect of it, I am kind of glad that they decided not to continue on with Original Sin, because I feel like if we're talking about the setting and the order of the shows, if you look at Original Sin as a miniseries, I feel like it goes seamlessly into the first season of Dexter, of where they leave it off, of the thread that they leave it on, for you to pick back up in the first season. And I feel like that would have been diminished had they decided to continue with another season, where it kind of would have taken away not only from Original Sin, but it would have taken away from Dexter, where, folks, I feel like, would have gotten lost. Where if you watch the miniseries of Original Sin right now, and then after that you start getting into that first season of Dexter, you'll be able to see a nice through line there of certain characters and the arcs of certain characters without having any seasons that could disrupt from that. So I'm happy.
Yeah, I guess I question the purpose of Original Sin. Obviously, we fleshed out more of was it Harry, Dexter's dad? We fleshed out more of that character and his circumstances and how he came to be Dexter's father. And I thought that was interesting. But, you know, how Dexter learned how to do the specific things or him playing catch up with his own instincts, for me personally, that was not very interesting. I feel like the first season of Dexter kind of explained it very well with the flashbacks and how they brought about the character. If I want that kind of Dexter content, I'll just rewatch season 1 of Dexter. So it felt redundant to me. But again, like you said, the cast was great. The characters who were able to emulate the other actors were fantastic. The guy who played Batista, I mean, come on, spot on. That was surprising to me. Christina Milan, fantastic. So there were some standouts in there, but I was like, this could have been an email.
Fair. So with that being said, we are going to wrap it up for tonight's The Night. Daniel, I want to thank you so much. As I said, it's so fun to have this on the bingo card with this show of having not only Donald Duck, not only Grimace, not only Gizmo, but Starscream all in one, doing a Dexter show.
Yes, you brought me the old Spark human. Thank you for letting me poop all over your favorite show.
So with that being said, can you tell folks where they can find you?
Yes, I don't want Dexter to find me though, so we'll keep the personal details hidden. But you can find me on socials at actor Daniel Ross. I hope you will. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, the Twitters, or as it's called X's now. I don't know.
Right.
But you can find me across social media. You can find me at shows. I'll be at ToonCon tomorrow in Burbank. Tomorrow being the 7th, and yeah, hope to see you out there.
All right, awesome. So again, I want to thank Daniel Ross for joining us and talking the season finale of Dexter Resurrection. We'll see what is next on the chopping block, so to speak, with this show. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me at Brandon Choi ENT on X or Twitter or whatever you like to call it these days, and then Brandon Choi _ENT on Instagram. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and see you guys soon.